Today's episode is going to be a little more informal. I want this one to be more of a discussion. There is a video essay coming, working on something. I'm actually working on two things. So, two separate videos. One about this Kendrick Lamar Drake situation, but also Kendrick Lamar as a whole and his spiritual war. The other is going to be about conservatives because I got a comment, multiple comments. By multiple, I mean like there were like liberals defending conservatives and conservatives defending conservatives, which is really weird. Um, Not the conservatives defending conservatives part, the liberal part. Conservative. Anyways, I got a comment and it made me want to do a video. So I'm going to do a video about conservatism. Because I just couldn't find very good videos on YouTube about this topic that were more like grounded and had more of a human aspect to it instead of just reading words off a page. And two, I guess I made the liberals and conservatives upset that I dumbed down what it means to be less conservative. Either way, today this is a discussion, open forum, so I want people to talk about this in the comments. We're going to be talking about morality, metaethics, and how we form morality as a society. There's so many aspects of morality. I have gone back and forth through my own personal life about what is good and what is bad and what is in between, and whether or not being this level of good is worth being that level of bad, and so on and so forth and such. And I probably will always question right and wrong and wonder which piece of the scale you should be more on, because I think that's just a thing with morality, is just trying to decide where you land. My analytics tell me that most of you are new here, so now I know you're new here. If you're new here, like, comment, subscribe. If you enjoyed the video, let me know. Also, the point of this is, like I said, a discussion. I want to have a whole conversation in the comments section. If you have opposition to something I say that. If you like what I say that. If you have other notes you want to make, say that. And we can just talk about that. So I will see you in the comment section. Like I said, like, comment, and subscribe, and we're going to get into today's video. Every election cycle, there is always, especially with the last the last 3 election cycles of my life, that is 12 years of my life. It's crazy. With the last 3 election cycles, there has been a moral quandary posed to people. And the moral quandary becomes more and more rigorous each election season. This time it's on the side of trying to determine where you stand in terms of genocide. Actually, can I say genocide on YouTube? I guess I feel like it doesn't matter. I'm gonna say genocide. This one is about where you stand on the issue of genocide. Is genocide a morally okay thing to accept when it comes down to the comforts of our lives as American people, the comforts that we have come to know as Americans as being the top empire, as being not the people being bombed by us? These comforts that we have come to know, do we accept the trade of these comforts for essentially accepting that a genocide will continue? And it's one that we could have a major effect in ending. But the secondary moral quandary posed is that, or the secondary half of this moral quandary that is posed is, do you pick the worst person outside of just accepting genocide? You will have to accept homophobia. You will have to accept racism. You will have to accept misogyny. You will have to accept all of the core aspects that stem from colonialism and capitalism. You will have to just accept them. And it's a choice of whether you choose that, you choose just the genocide acceptance, except it's not just the genocide acceptance. Is also questionable stances on prison, stances on, it's not even questionable. It's bad stances on the environmental policies. It's a very conservative movement on immigration. And the thing about immigration that I'm just gonna do a quick little spiel about is that, like, for me personally, whenever I don't work at my like primary job, which is bartending, I then go out and DoorDash. And the amount of immigrants that work and deliver all of your food to the comforts of your fun little homes is immense. Also, on the note of bartending, the amount of people that are immigrants that work in the bar space, in the restaurant space, in the service industry space as a whole, in the retail space, I think that like a lot of people are blaming a lot of the problems that they see in our society on immigrants. And I genuinely believe that that frustration is misplaced. I understand the implications that are surrounding the ideal. Yes, there are people that are being paid less than you to do the job that you would otherwise do. The problem is not with the people, it is with the fact that they can be paid less to do the job that you would have done. Both of you should be being paid the same amount. Secondarily, immigrants are like pay into our taxes. It's not like they're here and getting so much money and so much benefit. There was an eternal list of struggles involved with immigration, and our immigration policy is terrible. It's not helpful. It doesn't do anything for us. It lends itself to being nothing more than a bigger issue than it needs to be. Fixing our immigration policies, fixing the line in which I'm doing a thing. I don't need to do this thing, but fixing our immigration policies, fixing the lines in which you need to go through in order to become a US citizen should be simplified. A mass majority of the people that are marked as immigrants that are supposedly taking your jobs are people with overstayed visas. This is a hard fact that nobody like acknowledges. This is a hard fact that like conservatives just kind of throw out the window. Overstayed visas are the largest amount of immigration that we have noted in this country. Anyways, now that I've done my quick rant about the thing that wasn't the today's topic, we're talking about morals, meta ethics, and where the line is drawn. Where where you draw the line, where you're supposed to draw the line ideally in society, and where I wonder if you would draw the line. So where you should draw the line according to society, where you should draw the line according to society is you should draw the line, democracy is at the stake. Ignore the growing reigns of fascism that impose themselves on the country. Ignore what's going on outside of the country. Focus on the fact that you, an American citizen, are going to lose your right to democracy. That's where you were supposed to draw the line as an American citizen in this moral quandary. That is where you, by societal means or by societal rule, are supposed to draw the line. Where some people have drawn the line is the democracy is already being lost, and the line should be hold politicians accountable while also, yes, stopping the furthering of the loss of democracy. Where I believe most people should draw the line based on my own moral stems is that most people should draw the line at we should never have been stuck with the two choices that we have been given in the first place. Where most people should have drawn the line, in my opinion, is with Bernie Sanders. Where most people should have drawn the line, in my opinion, is with the fact that you cannot win as a third party candidate in the United States of America. It is an unequivocal fact. No matter how many votes you get, you, one, have to get past the problem of being seen by the American public as much as the candidates of either party, Democrat or conservative. then have to not only continue to be seen at the same rates, you have to be given fair opportunity to speak and tell people what it is that you represent. Outside of that, you then have to find a way to convince the American public that the two options that they are very used to picking do not have to be the only two options. And even if you beat all of those odds, the likelihood is that it will come to a three-way tie. And in the event of a three-way tie, the decision then falls to the electorate, not the popular vote. I'm sorry to break it to you. It falls to the electorate. From the electorate, it will then be decided based on the electorate. The electorate is never going to choose the third party candidate because there are not very many third party members in any space of our government. Now, yes, there are politicians who are working to make it so that we stop depending on the electorate and start depending on the popular vote, as the popular vote has been a constant reoccurring winning factor that has just been ignored on multiple election occasions. Given that means we would have gotten Hillary Clinton, and that's a questionable thing. We would have had to accept that we would have had to accept what the DNC did to Bernie Sanders. Most people have already accepted what the DNC has done to Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders seems like he has accepted what the DNC did to him. But the reality of the situation is that no one should have accepted what was done to Bernie Sanders. That was not an act of quote unquote saving democracy. And before you get high and mighty conservatives in the comments, I also have a lot of qualms and queries about you, the party of quote unquote freedom that is perpetually taking rights from people to fit in line with your idea of what the standard of living should be. That's not freedom. Don't know if anybody told you that. Just because you think freedom is I get gun and immigrants are gone, that's not what freedom is. It literally ignores the definition of freedom as a whole, but I'm just going to move past this. I want you to watch this video really quickly. I'm going to talk about it on the basis of morality. I'm going to talk about it on the basis of morality, and then I have one more topic on the basis of morality that I want to talk about. It has to do with the Jubilee video. I'm sorry. I watched it in full. I don't know why I did, but I did. I watched both of them in full. Watch this video.
Unless you're actually Palestinian or you have been advocating for Sudan and the Congo equally as much and have been advocating for Palestine prior to last October, I think that you're performative, and I don't think that you should have an opinion on this election, especially if you say that you're not voting anyway. Shut up. All of these things are terrible and deserve your attention. An arms embargo will not result in a ceasefire. And if you are on here trying to convince people to not vote for Kamala and or not vote at all, you are literally risking people's lives, because people will be unalived if that other man gets in office. And also, if you're doing so in hopes of some radical revolution within America, again, people's lives are at stake. This is not a fucking game. This is not a competition for TikTok likes or trying to get monetized. No, stop all that bullshit. Get in the fucking booth and act like you got some fucking sense, or shut the fuck up. Stop regurgitating shit that you done heard on TikTok and actually do research. Google is too fucking free for you to be out here acting this goddamn dumb.
Now that you've watched the video, I don't like that every time election season rolls out, people actually, I don't even want to say that this is simply just an election season thing. People have a tendency to do this thing where when you start to learn new information, when you are introduced to new themes within this world, for some reason, people find it in themselves to say, no, you're not allowed to do that. You are being performative. You don't believe the things that you are representing. And I always find this very interesting. This creator, I know this person. So at some point in time, he will see this and he will either respond or he won't respond, and that's okay. You cannot presume to know the state at which someone is devoted to something such as a cause that is essentially attuned to be a humanitarian cause. You cannot presume to know the level of effort and emotional stake that somebody has put on to such a cause. Further, if someone learned about the things that have been going on in Palestine on October 7th and going forward, that is not a negative thing. That is a positive thing. It means their worldview has become more informed. As a result of their worldview becoming more informed, they are now moving with the knowledge that they have been presented. Their stances on certain political efforts may be different now because they have been presented with new information. If they learned and decided that they are now on the side of Palestine in the last 2 weeks, that is okay because it means that they have been presented with new knowledge to confirm their worldview. In terms of morality with this situation, this is the most interesting moral quandary that somebody could pose. Your emotional standpoint, the degree to which you dedicate yourself to something, is determined on time. I found myself noticing that during election season, the morally righteous press themselves upon the masses, shaming you into believing being against something while also saying, no, I don't want to vote for Donald Trump. And I don't think I'm going to vote at all. One, it's within people's rights to not vote. I don't know why we always do this every year where people get mad at people for not voting. If a person cannot come to a conclusion that fits their own moral compass, you cannot force, shame, or berate people into wanting to do something like that. All that it will result in is if they do vote and they vote for the person you want them to vote for, when things start going bad, you're not going to stand behind this person and be like, yeah, this is, it's just a part of the thing and we're going to get through it. No. Once the new shiny thing pops up, you will all just skip to the next person. That's literally what happened when Joe Biden was replaced by Kamala Harris. The thing wasn't that you were all Bernie or busters, or you were all Biden or busters. It was that you are just staunchly for the Democratic Party. That is okay. Your morals lead you to believe that above all else, you should exercise your right to vote, and the exorcism of that right and the use of that right should be to vote blue no matter who. It's a real saying. I don't know why that's a real saying, but it's not a good saying when you're trying to tell people that you're saving democracy. That is not democratic. I've never understood that. It has never made sense to me. Telling people you must vote for this one specific subsect of people or you're throwing away democracy is a fallible statement on both sides. Both sides do this. There are conservatives that will always vote conservative just strictly on the fact that they are conservatives. Just strictly on the fact that they are conservatives. There are Democrats who will always vote Democrat, just strictly on the basis that they are Democrats. I also want to talk about the morality around the pro-life movement. This will probably get a rise out of people. The point is not to get a rise out of people, but to state something truthfully and honestly and hope that people understand where I'm coming from with this sentiment. The back half of the Jubilee video, very last, you get 10 minutes with whatever. I'm going to show you. Watch the clip. You see how he poses the question, and we're going to talk about why I thought about the morality in this.
I hope to have a respectful dialogue with you. My claim is that abortion is immoral or not justified.
So Micah poses this claim. Abortion is immoral or not justified. I'm more so focused on the morality of it all. The morality of it all is subjective. I made this comment in the comment section. My comment was, the last debate is so interesting because It's just a question of morality. Morality is subjective and changes over time and throughout different societies. To argue anything based on morality through the lens of religion is a harder fight than any other, because religious ideology doesn't have overarching logical proof attached to it. There are a multitude of belief systems, and to base morality on the opinions of one is ironically unpatriotic by going against the First Amendment. The situation of pro life is very, very interesting because one shows that the morality behind freedom and the Conservative Party do not align well. It also shows that the morality behind being strictly attached to the Constitution does not apply to conservatives, but they will quote different amendments very, very often, such as the First Amendment, right to freedom of speech, also the right to freedom of religion. The thing about the right to freedom of religion is that all religions should be practiced. If every religious ideology has a different way of approaching and interpreting what abortion means for them, who are we to say that this country should be going off of the basis of Judeo-Christian values solely if we are a free nation that offers the right to freedom of religion? The morality of acceptance of freedom seems a little off if there are aspects in which freedom is not okay, mainly being women's right to bodily autonomy. The morality that the right has sat with is that it's not just that you are a woman that gets to choose what's being done to your body. It's also that you are choosing what is done to another life. And this is where things get very, very gunky. Most of these arguments lead to, well, life is only presented at this set of, or not life, but consciousness is only presented at this time frame. Life is present at this time frame from conception to most conservatives. From conception, that's when the moral quandary begins, that you are trying to discard a active life. Some conservatives are lenient on this, and they are like, well, in cases of SA or ST, I'm going to do ST, I'm going to say ST. In cases of SA and ST, they're like, yeah, this is fine. If it's a child, some conservatives are like, yeah, this makes sense. Let's get rid of that. In other cases, it's like, no, you must keep this child. And I find that very, very interesting, because I don't find it interesting because anybody's going to get to one grady or like one perfect solution, because nobody's going to get to one perfect solution, because at the end of the day, what people believe is what people believe. But I do find it interesting on the basis that it forces conservatives to abandon the morality that they have surrounding freedom. It forces them to say, no, like, yeah, you can be free, but not here, not with this. And I find that very, very interesting, because it then suggests that conservatives will move the goalpost on any aspect of freedom. Yeah, everybody should have a right to a gun, except those people. Those people shouldn't have guns. Why do they have guns? Everybody should have the right to work in whatever workplace they would, except that person. Why is that person dressed like that? Why does that person look like that? You definitely can't do that. Everybody should have the freedom to do with their body whatever they want, except that those people, those people should not be able to do what they want with their body. Why do they want to do that to their body? That doesn't make any sense. And you start to, like, this is the best example of where the abandonment of freedom morally goes to. And I do also think it's very interesting that a lot of this follows Judeo-Christian values. So what that means is that in the deepest aspect of it all, freedom doesn't exist depending on what divination of Christian you are. And honestly, for a lot of religious ideology in general, freedom is a non existent facet of life. If you go through the Bible, depending on which, I guess, honestly, every single subtext of the Bible or every single translation of the Bible probably will lead you to this sort of answer where it is that like freedom exist, but only to a certain degree. Everything is already predicted, has been seen, and has been done because God is omnipotent. The aspects that are involved in freedom aren't, you're not free to choose these things. These are things that were always going to happen. I do eventually want to talk about how that kind of spreads itself to make me question certain elements of the Bible. Like, if this is the case, if God is omnipotent, why test the people knowing that they'll fail? Is like, for lack of better words, is it a bit? Is it just a little thing to poke and prod to see the fun of like I don't get that part. That is something that I've always had a very, very big question on. If you know that people are going to fail the test that you're going to give them, why give them the test in the first place? You know the outcome. You know the exact outcome. You know every single step that that person, those people, that group, that nation will take. Why give them the test? I watched the video. I watch a lot of videos. I watched the video about morality slash meta ethics. There was a quote by Kant. I will put it in secondarily whenever I find the quote. Currently, am settled on that as where my morality lies. It has to do with not making somebody a means to an end, rather always an end. And it needs to be explained further, but I'm not going to explain it further right now because I cannot remember the full quote, and that is part of the problem. I did not write a script for this. This is literally just a discussion. I wanted to talk about these things, and I wanted you to talk to me about these things so we can have the whole discussion. I think the reason that I found myself deep diving into morality is the Marcellus, let me find this man's name in full, Marcellus Eve.
I just have to observe a moment of silence for Imam Marcellus Khalifa Williams, who was put to death yesterday by this corrupt imperialist state. And we heard nothing from the Black woman who seeks to lead this country into the next phase, right?
Watching what happened with his execution, finding out the beforehand information, I will link below. There was a very good video that describes, not even in full, just a good bit of what the governor has been doing in his time in political office. I think this is hard. This is hard to talk about. I think that in a lot of fronts, we go, yeah, morality. We are the moral good of society. We, the American people, are so good, so morally good. And yet we still have the death penalty. And this is one of those things that brings me to my undistilled anger toward both political parties. There is no movement to abolish this method of carceral punishment. It's something that has always been there, and no matter which of the two candidates I pick, it will always be there until we do something about it. Even now, as I make this video, Kamala Harris has said nothing, has made no effort as vice president to do anything to stop this. And I hate to present someone's death as a easy preventable like thing that is also a good gotcha card for a political standing, but that's what politicians do. They use these sorts of things for these sorts of situations. Not a word, not a peep from either side, really. A few, um, and they were all a lot of the ones that we would have expected to be. For us to be such a morally above so many people as a society, for us to still have the death penalty, to go through the efforts of having hundreds of thousands of petitions signed, to go through the effort of emailing to the point that their email shut down, calling to the point that their phone line went down, tagging to the point that I'm sure their mentions were littered. The prosecution, the defendant, the 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 literal criminal prosecutor who was involved in the case, the family of the victim, all saying, no, we should hold this execution. We should stop this before it happens. And yet here we are in the most morally right than thou society with another lost life, another lost innocent life. And this isn't even the first innocent life that has been executed. It seems like it won't be the last, at least with the way that we are, at least with the way that we are placing our votes. I think that more people need to vote locally and actually show up. You would be surprised you would be surprised to know that even in cities like, or even in states like Texas, the overwhelming majority of Democrats that exist in Texas, registered, fully able to vote people with the ability to get to the voting booth that just don't vote in local elections, but do show up for the every 4 years election. Because a lot of these issues aren't just federal. Yeah, we could push for a president or a vice president that would be apt to get rid of this, would be apt to abolish the death penalty. But this is local legislation that allowed this to happen. This isn't an order done by President Biden. This isn't an order done by former President Trump. This is local legislation. This is local politics. So it makes me wonder just how morally righteous we all are if we allow something so cynical as the death penalty to continue. I am personally for abolition of prisons. I don't agree with the prison system as a whole. I think that and I have a whole video about why I am a little off put, to say the least, by prisons, the things that they do, how they operate, what functions they operate with. And I didn't even include the death penalty in there because it's one of the few things inside of prisons where I'm kind of just like, yeah, man, we should just get rid of that. I don't know why we have that right now. I don't know why we have that anymore at all. I don't know why we ever did have that. I brought this topic up, and then it started to dawn on me that I am actually really, really upset about Marcellus's passing. But I do really appreciate the positive things that have come. Strength in, while I was just very critical of, while I was just earlier critical of religion, the strength in his faith to find comfort even on the cusp of death, and for his last words to be, all praise be to Allah in every situation. There's something very powerful. There's just something very powerful about that, about finding a way to sit with the reality that death is coming and accept it and hope that even in death, you still can create some form of good. As always, thank you for watching.